Papa left 'cause Mom was too big.
I promise. I'll never leave you.
Ruth's needle pulled thread through silk by lamplight, each stitch careful and precise. The wedding dress lay across her lap, intricate lace and beautiful beading that had taken weeks to complete. She was talented, everyone said so, even if it never seemed to matter much. "Mama, come to bed. You've been sewing all day." Ruth looked up. Alice stood in the doorway rubbing her eyes, 6 years old in her nightgown. "Just final touches, sweetheart." Ruth held up the dress. Candlelight caught the fabric and made it shimmer like something from a dream. Alice's eyes widened. "It's beautiful, Mama." Ruth smiled tight. "The bride will be happy." Alice's face fell. The wonder disappeared. "Mama, if you'd made a dress this beautiful for yourself, would Papa have stayed?" Ruth's heart cracked. The needle stilled in her hand. She set the dress aside carefully and opened her arms. "Come here, my love." She tucked Alice into bed and sang the old lullaby softly, stroking her daughter's hair until the child's breathing slowed into sleep. Then Ruth sat by the window in darkness and let herself remember what she'd spent 2 years trying to forget. 2 years ago, William had walked through their door with a woman Ruth had never seen. Younger, thin, smiling like she'd already won. "This is Margaret. I'm living with her now." Ruth's hands had gone numb. "What are you saying?" "I feel ashamed standing beside you, telling people you're my wife." He gestured toward Margaret without looking at Ruth. "You can stay here 6 months while you find work. After that, the house is mine. We have a daughter. You'll figure something out." Little Alice had been 4 years old then, peeking around the corner with confused, frightened eyes. "Papa? Where are you going?" William didn't even look at her. Just turned and walked out the door. Alice ran to Ruth. "Why is Papa leaving?" Ruth held her and cried. "I don't know, baby. I don't know." Ruth blinked. The memory faded. She folded the finished dress and blew out the lamp. Morning came early. Ruth worked at 3 houses that day while Alice followed, mending curtains and fixing hems and taking measurements. By evening they were walking home and the sun stretched their shadows long across the dusty street. "Mrs. Whitmore." Ruth's stomach dropped. Mr. Duncan stepped into their path. "Working late again?" "Good evening, Mr. Duncan." She tried to walk past. He blocked her. "A woman like you shouldn't be alone at night. Men like me appreciate your particular qualities." Ruth pulled Alice close. "Excuse us. You'll come around eventually." She hurried past and didn't breathe properly until their door was locked. The next morning a messenger brought a letter with a wax seal. Ruth's hands trembled breaking it open. "Mrs. Whitmore, I require a seamstress for my brother's wedding trousseau. Extensive work, 4 to 6 weeks. Payment upon completion, $50. Catherine Hart, $50. 3 months of rent." Ruth wrote back immediately, "Yes." 3 days later she and Alice rode a borrowed wagon toward Hart Ranch. The house appeared on the horizon, 2 stories of whitewashed wood with pastures stretching forever. Horses grazed in groups so large Ruth lost count. Alice pressed against her. "Ma, look at all the horses." A woman waited on the porch. Tall, elegant, cold eyes. "You're the seamstress?" "Yes, ma'am. Ruth Whitmore. This is my daughter Alice." The woman's gaze moved over Ruth's body in one quick assessment. "I'm Catherine Hart. The child can play outside. Keep her away from the livestock." Inside, another woman waited. Beautiful, dark hair, expensive dress. She looked at Ruth like mud on her shoe. "This is Virginia Pemberton. My brother's intended." Virginia's lip curled. "This is the seamstress? She comes highly recommended." Virginia sniffed. "If you say so." Ruth began taking measurements while Virginia made small, cutting remarks. "Make sure the waist is very small. Very small. I can't stand loose fabric." "Of course, ma'am." "And the neckline should be flattering. Not like..." Virginia's eyes traveled over Ruth's body. But you understand. Ruth's face burned, but she kept her hands steady and her voice professional. Yes, ma'am. Outside, Alice wandered toward the corral where a man was working with a chestnut mare. Tall, weathered, kind eyes. He looked up and saw her standing at the fence watching. Hey there. He walked over. You lost. Alice shook her head. No, sir. I'm just watching the horses. You here with someone? My mama. She's inside working. He nodded. You like horses? Alice's eyes lit up. I've never seen so many before. Well, want to meet one? He brought the mare closer to the fence. This is Rosie. She's friendly. Alice reached up carefully to touch the horse's soft nose. She giggled when Rosie snorted warm breath across her palm. What's your name? Alice. I'm Thomas. You visiting Miss Catherine? My mama's making a wedding dress. For your bride. Thomas's smile faded slightly. Right. Alice tilted her head, studying him. She's very beautiful. And thin. She paused. Do you like thin ladies? Thomas blinked, caught completely off guard. What? Alice's face fell. I'm sorry. Mama says I ask too many questions. No, it's okay. He seemed genuinely confused. That's an interesting question. Before Alice could explain, Ruth's voice called from the house. Alice, time to go. Alice waved. Bye, Mr. Thomas. Thank you for showing me Rosie. Bye, Alice. Thomas watched her run off, wondering why a child that young would ask if he liked thin women. Inside, Catherine paid Ruth a deposit in crisp bills. 6 dresses total. Wedding gown, 3 day dresses, 2 evening gowns. You'll come weekly for fittings. Yes, ma'am. Ruth and Alice left. In the hallway they passed Thomas, who tipped his hat. Ma'am. Ruth nodded and hurried out, her heart beating faster than it should. Thomas turned to Catherine. That's the seamstress? Why? Nothing. Her daughter seems sweet. Catherine's eyes narrowed. Thomas said nothing. But that night he kept thinking about a little girl asking if he liked thin ladies, and the quiet woman with tired eyes who looked afraid to hope for anything. Ruth came back the following week. Virginia found new ways to be cruel. Can you even reach to hem properly? Ruth knelt lower. Yes, ma'am. Don't breathe so heavily. It's distracting. Ruth held her breath while pinning the fabric. My apologies. Make sure the stitching is perfect. I know your type tends to rush. Ruth's face burned, but she kept working. She needed this job too badly to let pride get in the way. Outside, Alice spent the visits exploring while Thomas found himself finishing his work early, always seeming to be wherever she was. The next visit, Thomas found Alice standing by the chicken coop watching the hens peck at the ground. Want to help feed them? Alice's face lit up. Really? He handed her the bucket and showed her how to scatter the feed. She moved carefully, gently, and the chickens crowded around her feet without fear. You're good with animals. Mama says animals don't judge you. They just love you. Thomas felt the words settle in his chest. Your mama sounds wise. The following week, Thomas was waiting when Alice arrived. Want to meet my dog? He introduced her to Scout, his border collie who seemed to love Alice immediately. She threw sticks and Scout retrieved them over and over while Alice's laughter rang across the yard, pure and joyful. Thomas watched with something warm blooming in his chest. Another visit found Alice at the corral fence watching Thomas work with the horses. She was quiet for a long time before speaking. Mr. Thomas, why aren't you married yet? He paused in checking a horse's hooves. I was married once. My wife died 3 years ago. Alice's face fell. I'm sorry. That's very sad. She was quiet for a moment. My papa left, but that's different. He chose to leave. Why did your papa leave? Alice's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Because Mama got too big. She picked at the fence rail. Is that why you're marrying Miss Virginia? Because she's thin. Thomas went very still. He said that to you? He said it to Mama. But I was listening. Alice looked up at him with eyes too old for her age. So do you? Like thin ladies? Thomas didn't know how to answer because maybe that was part of it, the part he didn't want to examine too closely. Inside, Ruth endured another fitting. This neckline makes me look fat. Fix it immediately. Ma'am, the measurements are exact. Are you arguing with me? No, ma'am. Thomas was passing and heard Virginia's sharp tone cutting through Ruth's quiet acceptance. His jaw clenched, but he kept walking. The wedding was weeks away. Visits continued. The wedding date crept closer. Then came the afternoon Ruth arrived for the final fitting and dark clouds rolled in from the west. Let's hurry. Storm's coming, Catherine said. But Virginia demanded adjustment after adjustment. By the time she was satisfied, rain hammered the windows hard enough to rattle glass. Catherine looked outside at lightning splitting the sky. You can't travel in this. The roads will flood. Ruth wanted to refuse, but thunder shook the house and Alice pressed against her with frightened eyes. Catherine gave them a guest room. That night the storm raged. Alice cried at each crack of thunder. Ruth held her and sang softly. Hush now, my darling, the prairie is still. Moonlight lies soft on the faraway hill. Papa rides home on a slow-moving star, while angels keep watch from wherever you are. Close those sweet eyes, let the coyotes sleep too. Mama is here and she's holding you. Thomas was in his room unable to sleep. The wedding was next week and dread sat heavy. Then he heard singing and followed the sound until he stood outside the guest room listening to Ruth's voice wrap around words of comfort. When the song ended he almost left. But Alice's voice stopped him. Mama, are we going to be okay? Yes, baby. Always. But what if we can't pay rent? Mrs. Calloway said. Shoo, don't worry about that. Thomas knocked softly. Ruth opened the door, surprised. Mr. Hart. I'm sorry for disturbing you. I heard the singing. It was beautiful. Alice peeked out. Mr. Thomas. Hey, Alice. He looked at Ruth. I couldn't help overhearing about the rent. If you need help. Ruth's face went blank. That's not your concern. I'm making it my concern. Mr. Hart, we're managing. Are you? They stared at each other. Something passed between them. Alice yawned. I should put her to bed, Ruth said quietly. Wait, can I tell her about the ranch? Might help her sleep. Ruth hesitated before nodding. Thomas sat in the doorway with the door properly open, telling Alice about horses and calving season and the time Scout chased a coyote. Alice's eyes grew heavy while Ruth stroked her hair. When Alice finally slept, Thomas spoke carefully. She told me something. About her father. Ruth's hand stilled. She said he left because... You. Ruth looked toward the window. She shouldn't have told you. He actually said that to you? Yes. Then he's a fool. Thomas's voice came out fierce. Any man who'd abandon his family over that is a fool. Ruth's eyes filled. You're kind to say so. I'm not being kind. I'm being honest. Silence stretched, comfortable despite the storm. Thomas finally stood. I should let you rest. Thomas, wait. He turned back. Thank you. For listening. For being kind to Alice. She's special. You're raising her right. He left. Ruth sat in darkness with her heart beating too fast while Thomas lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The wedding was in 1 week and he was falling for the wrong woman. Morning came. The storm had passed. Ruth and Alice prepared to leave, but Virginia arrived early. Her eyes went cold seeing Ruth's wagon still there. She looked at Thomas, then Ruth, suspicion flaring. Ruth left quickly. Thomas watched the wagon disappear. Catherine appeared beside him. Don't get attached. You're marrying Virginia in 1 week. What if I don't want to? You need this marriage. Her father's investing $3,000. We need that money. At what cost? Catherine didn't answer. Thomas wondered when doing the right thing had become impossible. The wedding gown was nearly finished. Ruth's hands shook making final adjustments on a dress so beautiful it made her sick because she knew who would wear it. Virginia stood on the platform criticizing every detail. The train is still too long. The lace at the wrist is scratchy. Fix both immediately. Ruth knelt to adjust the hem, her face burning. Yes, ma'am. Virginia watched her struggle to stand. Must be difficult getting down there. Outside, Alice played with Scout. They'd become inseparable, chasing each other while Alice's laughter rang pure and joyful. She ran past Thomas's study window and saw it standing open, an inkwell sitting on the sill. Pretty glass filled with blue ink catching sunlight. She picked it up carefully, just wanting to see it better. Scout barked suddenly right behind her. Alice startled. The inkwell slipped. Everything happened slowly. Glass shattering, ink splashing black across her dress and the ground and through the window onto something white inside. Virginia's scream could have shattered more glass. She ran into the study and saw the massive stains spreading across the wedding gown's bodice. You little monster. Alice started crying. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Virginia grabbed Alice's arm hard. Do you know what you've done? Ruth ran in and saw ink everywhere. Her face went white. Alice, what happened? It was an accident, Mama. Virginia whirled on Ruth. Your brat just ruined my wedding dress 1 week before the ceremony. Catherine appeared. What is going on? Look at it. Virginia's voice was shrill. How am I supposed to get married now? The stain was massive and unfixable. Ruth knew immediately. I'll remake it. I'll work day and night, I promise. There's no time. The wedding is in 1 week. Please, I need this work. Catherine's voice cut through like a knife. I'm terminating your contract. Ruth's world tilted. Please, ma'am, I'll work for free. There's no time. You need to leave. Alice sobbed. It wasn't her fault. It was mine. Thomas had been in the barn. He heard screaming and came running. What happened? Virginia pointed at Alice. That woman's child destroyed my wedding dress. Thomas saw Alice crying, Ruth shaking, ink everywhere. It was an accident. I don't care. She's clumsy and destructive. Thomas's voice went cold. She's 6 years old. She shouldn't have been touching things. She was touching an inkwell I left on the windowsill. If anyone's at fault, it's me. Virginia stared. You're defending her? Taking their side over mine? I'm defending a child who made a mistake. I'm your fiancé. Then maybe you should act like someone worth marrying instead of screaming at children. Silence crashed through the room. Virginia's face went white, then red. How dare you? I dare because I've watched you treat Ruth like dirt for weeks. I've listened to you mock her. And now you're screaming at a terrified child. He turned to Ruth. How much were you owed? Ruth barely got the words out. $50. Thomas pulled out cash and counted it. Here's 60. I can't accept this. You're taking it. He looked at Virginia. The wedding is off. Virginia gasped. You can't break our engagement. I just did. He walked to Ruth and Alice. Come on. I'll take you home. The wagon ride was silent except for Alice crying quietly. Thomas pulled up at their cottage. Ruth, if you need help. Her voice came out stiff. We'll be fine. I broke off my engagement. Ruth looked at him sharply. You shouldn't have. Yes, I should have. I couldn't marry someone like Virginia. But you needed that marriage. Your sister said. I don't care about the money. Their eyes held. I couldn't spend my life with someone who treats people that way. Ruth's voice was barely a whisper. Thank you for defending Alice and for this money. But we can't see you again. It wouldn't be proper. Ruth, please. Goodbye, Thomas. She went inside and closed the door. Thomas sat in the wagon, heart aching. By the next morning, the whole town knew. At the Mercantile, Virginia wasted no time. Thomas Hart broke our engagement for that fat seamstress and her brat. She seduced him while staying overnight at his ranch. It's a scandal. At the saloon, Mr. Duncan, still bitter that Ruth had rejected him, added his poison. I always knew she was that type of woman. Working alone with men? Staying overnight? Shameful. The next morning, Ruth went to the general store for supplies. The moment she stepped inside, the chatter stopped. Women froze mid-whisper and stared. She tried to pay. I can't serve you, the shopkeeper said flatly. But I have money. Doesn't matter. I don't want your business. Humiliated, Ruth left. Her cheeks burned as she walked down the street. At her next client's house, Mrs. Patterson refused to open the door. I can't have you in my home. People will talk, the woman said before closing it in Ruth's face. Alice tugged at her mother's hand. Mama, why are people being mean? Ruth forced a smile she didn't feel. Nothing, baby. Nothing important. But both of them knew the truth. That evening, the landlord appeared at their door with an eviction notice. You have 30 days to vacate. Rent is overdue, and we've received complaints regarding your character. Please leave promptly. Ruth read the paper 3 times, her stomach sinking each time. Alice leaned close. What does it say? Nothing, baby. Nothing important, Ruth whispered. That night Ruth sat by the window trying to figure out what to do. 30 days. Nowhere to go. No money. The whole town against them. She had to figure something out. Alice was depending on her. That was all that mattered. Thomas rode to Ruth's cottage 3 days after the gossip started. He had to know if she was all right. He knocked, waited. The door opened a crack and Ruth stood there looking drawn, eyes tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. You shouldn't be here. I needed to see if you're all right. We're fine. Her voice was flat. You're lying. Ruth's jaw clenched. What do you want me to say, Thomas? That the town has turned on me? That no one will hire me anymore? That my daughter gets pushed down at church and called names by children whose mothers I used to sew for? Ruth, I'm sorry. This is what associating with me costs. I told you this would happen. I don't care what it costs. You should. She tried to close the door but he caught it. Let me help you. I have money I can. No. Her voice broke. You've done enough. Every time you defend me it gets worse. Just leave us alone. I can't do that. You have to. She looked at him with eyes full of pain. Please, Thomas. Just go. She closed the door. He heard the lock slide into place. Thomas stood there for a long moment before finally walking back to his horse, feeling more helpless than he'd ever felt in his life. Inside, Ruth leaned against the door and let herself cry. 2 days later, Ruth answered a knock without thinking, then froze. William stood on her porch, drunk and smiling. Hello, Ruth. Alice appeared and immediately hid when she saw who it was. What do you want, William? Heard you made quite a scandal. Living at some rancher's house, ruining his engagement. He stepped closer. Ruth could smell whiskey. Sounds like you owe me something. I don't owe you anything. Alice is still my daughter by law. Unless you want me taking her to the workhouse where she belongs, you'll pay me $100. Ruth's blood ran cold. I don't have $100. Then I'm taking her tomorrow morning. The law's on my side, Ruth. You're a woman of questionable morals now. No judge will choose you over me. You abandoned us. Doesn't matter what I did. What matters is what the law says. He straightened. Get me the money by tomorrow or lose your daughter. He walked away. Ruth stood there shaking. Alice wrapped her arms around her mother. Mama, I don't want to go with him. You won't, baby. I promise. But Ruth had no idea how to keep that promise. That night Ruth packed their belongings into one small trunk. Pack your things, Alice. We're leaving before sunrise. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. Somewhere people don't know us. But what about Mr. Thomas? Ruth's eyes fill. We can't see Mr. Thomas anymore. Why not? Because it's complicated, baby. But he's nice. And he likes you. That doesn't matter. Why? Because the world doesn't work that way. They left in pre-dawn darkness and walked because Ruth couldn't afford a wagon. Alice was exhausted after the first mile but didn't complain, just held her mother's hand. By mid-morning the sun beat down and they'd made maybe 5 miles. Mama, where are we going? Just a little further, baby. Going somewhere, Ruth? The voice came from behind. Ruth spun. William was there on horseback, drunk and mean. Thought you could run? Leave us alone, William. Not until I get what I'm owed. $100 or I'm taking her right now. He dismounted and grabbed for Alice's arm. Alice screamed. William yanked her forward hard. Let go of her. She's mine by law. Then hoofbeats thundered up the road. Thomas appeared on his horse, taking in the scene. His face went hard. Let her go. William sneered. Who the hell are you? Someone who keeps promises. Let go of the child. William's grip tightened. This is none of your business. Thomas dismounted in one smooth motion. I'm making it my business. William swung at him. Thomas dodged and hit back hard enough to drop William into the dirt. If you ever come near them again, I'll make sure you regret it. William scrambled up and stumbled to his horse, cursing. He rode off. Thomas turned. Alice threw herself at his legs, sobbing. Please don't let him take me. Thomas knelt to her eye level. Alice, look at me. She looked up, tears streaming. I promise you I will never let anyone hurt you. Not your father. Not anyone. Alice's voice came out choked. Everyone says you'll leave too because we're bad. Thomas felt something crack open in his chest. Sweetheart, listen carefully. Your papa left because he was a coward, not because your mama did anything wrong. But he promised he'd always love us. I'm not your papa. When I make a promise, I keep it. Every single time. He looked up at Ruth with tears in his own eyes. Both of you. I'm not leaving. He stood and faced Ruth directly. Marry me. Ruth stared. What? Marry me right now, today. If you're my wife, William can't touch Alice. I become her legal father. He has no claim. Thomas, you're losing everything because of us. I'm not losing anything that matters. He stepped closer. I'm not proposing out of pity. I'm proposing because I can't imagine my life without both of you in it. You barely know us. I know you're the kindest person I've ever met. I know you're brilliant and talented. I know you're the best mother I've ever seen. His voice dropped. And when I hear you sing, I feel something I haven't felt since my wife died. I feel hope. Ruth's tears fell faster. Thomas, I don't know. Say yes. Please. Alice tugged Ruth's skirt. Say yes, Mama. Please. Ruth looked at her daughter, then at Thomas, then at the uncertain future. She took a breath and made the bravest choice of her life. Yes. They found a traveling preacher that afternoon. The ceremony was simple, just the three of them standing beneath an old oak tree. Thomas used his mother's ring. When the preacher said, "You may kiss your bride," Thomas hesitated. He turned to Ruth, his voice low so only she could hear. Only if you want to. Ruth met his eyes. After everything she had been through, the choice mattered. She gave a small nod. The kiss was brief and gentle, not a claim, not a show, just a promise of safety. Alice clapped her hands. You're married? Thomas scooped her up. That means I'm your papa now, if you'll have me. Alice wrapped her arms around his neck. Yes. I want you to be my papa. They rode back to the ranch. Catherine was waiting on the porch. She saw Ruth and Alice and her face went cold. What is this, Thomas? This is my wife Ruth and my daughter Alice. Catherine stared. You married her without telling me? Would you have supported it? Silence stretched before Catherine turned and walked into the house. Thomas showed Ruth and Alice to the main bedroom. "This is yours. I'll take the guest room." Ruth looked at him. "Thomas, you don't have to. I want you to feel safe. This marriage happened fast. I don't expect anything. I just want you both to have a home." He paused at the door. "Take all the time you need." 1 week later, William filed for custody, claiming Ruth was unfit and Thomas had coerced her. The court hearing was packed. William's lawyer painted Ruth as immoral while Thomas's lawyer countered that William had abandoned his family. The judge interviewed Alice privately. "Do you want to live with your mother and Mr. Hart?" "Yes, sir." "Why?" "Because my new papa is kind and keeps his promises. My old papa broke all his promises, but my new papa keeps every single one." The judge ruled in their favor. William lost all parental rights and was ordered to stay away. Ruth nearly collapsed with relief. Thomas caught her, holding her close while she cried. The months that followed were hard. The bank threatened foreclosure. Clients abandoned Thomas. Cattle sales dropped and money got tight, but Thomas never wavered. He worked harder. Ruth helped with ranch accounts, finding errors and fixing calculations. Alice helped where she could. Catherine came to visit after 6 months of silence. She knocked and Ruth answered. "Mrs. Hart, may I speak with you?" They sat on the porch in awkward silence before Catherine spoke. "I was wrong about you. Wrong about everything. I thought I was protecting Thomas, but I was controlling him." She paused. "I see how he looks at you now. How Alice has blossomed. How you've made something beautiful. You saved him and I almost destroyed that. Can I be part of your lives again? I've missed my brother." Ruth smiled. "He's missed you too." Catherine rejoined the family and helped with finances. The ranch slowly stabilized. Ruth took in sewing work and her reputation rebuilt. Alice went to school with Catherine's help. The slow burn between Thomas and Ruth built over months of working side by side. Small touches. Long looks. Conversations that deepened. One evening on the porch after Alice had gone to bed, Thomas finally spoke. "Ruth, I need to tell you something. I didn't marry you just to protect Alice. I married you because I was falling in love with you." Ruth's eyes filled. "I was afraid to hope you felt the same." He kissed her properly for the first time, deep and real and full of months of wanting. They moved into the same room that night and it felt like coming home. 1 year after the wedding, Ruth sat on the porch sewing a tiny dress. Thomas came home from working cattle and saw what she was making. His eyes went wide. "Ruth." She took his hand and placed it on her belly. "We're having a baby." Thomas's face broke into pure joy. He kissed her deeply. Alice ran over. "What's happening?" Thomas picked her up. "You're going to be a big sister." Alice squealed and hugged them both. That evening the family sat together on the porch. Ruth sang softly, the same song from the storm night. Alice leaned against Thomas half asleep while he held Ruth's hand. "Do you remember that night during the storm?" Thomas asked quietly. "When I sang to Alice." "Yes. I knew then that I wanted this. All of it. You and her and this life." Ruth smiled. "Even knowing what it would cost?" "Especially knowing the cost. It proved you were worth fighting for." Alice mumbled sleepily. "Papa." "Yes, sweetheart. You kept your promise. You didn't leave." Thomas's voice was thick. "No, baby. I didn't. And I never will." The sun set and painted the sky in shades of orange and gold. Ruth thought about Alice's question from so long ago, whether a beautiful dress would have made William stay. The answer was no. It was never about dresses or size or what the world thought. It was about being chosen. Thomas had chosen them when they had nothing, when the world said they weren't worth it. He'd kept his promise every single day. He'd never left and never would. They sat together as darkness fell, a family built from broken pieces that fit perfectly. This was home.